When you give 15 years of your life to a company, you expect the ending, if it comes, to at least carry a shred of dignity. But that isn't how my story began. It began in a small glass-walled conference room with two women sitting across from me, wearing the kind of sympathetic expressions that are more performance than sincerity. Marjorie Thompson, my direct superior, smoothed her skirt before speaking, as if she had rehearsed this moment in the mirror. Kira, after 15 years with TechVantage, we're restructuring your position. Her words slid across the table like a knife coated in honey. Beside her, Denise from HR added quickly, "The company is moving in a new direction." She nudged a manila folder toward me, her manicured nails tapping the cover. "Your contributions have been valuable, but we're consolidating the research division under the product development team." I nodded, lifting the folder but not opening it. I didn't need to. I knew what was inside: a severance package carefully calculated to look fair on paper, but cold in practice. 2 weeks for every year of service, a few months of health coverage, a list of career counseling resources I would never use. "I completely understand," I said, my voice calm, steady. Relief flashed across their faces. They had braced for tears, protests, maybe even rage. After all, I was 55, a woman in tech, an industry that worshipped youth, while quietly discarding experience. They thought they were pushing me into uncertainty, into fear. What they didn't know was that I had anticipated this moment. For weeks I had seen the storm clouds forming. A misdirected email, a strategy memo that should never have reached my inbox. It had been enough to warn me. Enough to prepare. "We'd like you to clean out your desk by Friday," Marjorie said, her confidence growing as she mistook my composure for weakness. "We'll need your keycard, your laptop, your phone. Your team will be notified this afternoon." My team. 6 brilliant engineers I had personally recruited and mentored, the same team that helped me build the distributed processing algorithm that powered TechVantage's flagship product software, used by nearly half the Fortune 500. Without me, there would be no core technology. Without them, there would have been no success. Yet here we were. "Of course," I replied, standing gracefully. "Is there anything else?" They exchanged glances, surprised at my lack of reaction. Marjorie cleared her throat. "That's all for now. Thank you for making this professional." As I walked back to my office, I passed the executive conference room, where CEO Victor Lawson gestured wildly at a PowerPoint slide labeled Q3 revenue projections. Victor, the man who had taken credit for my algorithm at last year's conference, reducing me to one of our research team members in front of the entire industry. The memory burned. But so did something else: anticipation. Closing my office door, I pulled out my personal phone and typed a short message: "It's happening. Friday is my last day." The response came immediately: "Perfect timing. Contracts are ready. Dinner tonight to finalize details." I smiled, my gaze falling on the calendar. Today was Wednesday. Friday would be my last day at TechVantage. And Monday would be something else entirely. That evening I met Gregory Sullivan, CEO of Precision Systems, TechVantage's fiercest competitor. We sat in a private alcove of an upscale restaurant hidden by elegant Japanese screens. "They actually did it," Greg said, shaking his head. "To cut the very person who developed their core technology?" Victor never understood what I created, I said, sipping water. He saw the surface, the user interface, the marketing potential, but the architecture beneath it, he dismissed it as just tech stuff. The irony still amazed me. 3 months earlier, I had discovered that TechVantage's legal team had failed to file the patent for my algorithm. They called it an oversight, promised to fix it, but something in their tone had unsettled me, so I dug deeper. That's when I found the memo: an internal plan to claim the algorithm as company property, erase my name, and quietly push me out. What they didn't know was that I had already refined the algorithm at home, on my own time, on my own equipment. Those refinements made it 43% more efficient. And that work, documented with meticulous logs and timestamps, belonged to me alone. I had filed for the patent under my own name. It had been granted. "All the paperwork is finalized," Greg said, sliding a folder across the table. "As soon as you sign, Precision Systems acquires exclusive licensing rights. The press release goes out Monday morning announcing you as our new Chief Innovation Officer. I skimmed the contract, though I knew it by heart: a 7-figure signing bonus, substantial equity, ongoing royalties. Most importantly, recognition. To new beginnings, Greg said, raising his glass. To owning your own value, I replied, clinking mine against his. Thursday morning dawned with the kind of sharp autumn light that makes everything feel fragile and temporary. I walked into Tech Vantage with my head high, greeting the receptionist, as though it were any other day. But beneath the calm, I carried the knowledge that every step I took on this carpet, every email I sent from my company laptop, would soon be a memory. When I reached my office, I found a cardboard box waiting on my desk, courtesy of HR. A final indignity. They had reduced 15 years of work into a box barely large enough to hold a framed photo of my daughter, a couple of industry awards, and the potted succulent I kept on the windowsill. I ran a finger along the edge of the box and exhaled slowly. My team filtered in one by one that morning, their faces pale and tense. They had already received the email. Marjorie had written it with her usual bland detachment. Effective Friday. Kira Adams will no longer be with Tech Vantage. We appreciate her contributions. Contributions. As if I had dropped off a tray of cookies instead of building the very engine of their flagship software. Is it true? Miguel asked, his voice low. He was one of my first hires, a brilliant coder with a soft heart. I nodded. Yes, Friday is my last day. The silence that followed was heavy, each of them absorbing the truth. Then Alicia. My sharpest data scientist clenched her fists. They can't do this. You are this division. Without you, they already have. I cut her off gently. But listen to me, this isn't the end, for any of us. I wanted to tell them everything about the patent, about precision systems, about the storm that was about to break. But timing mattered. Until Monday, secrecy was survival. By mid-afternoon, whispers rippled through the office. People glanced at me as I walked past, some with pity, some with barely disguised curiosity, others with quiet admiration. They had seen employees discarded before, but not like this. Not someone so central, so visible. Marjorie stopped by my office near the end of the day, her smile stiff. I wanted to thank you personally, Kira. You've been an asset to the company. An asset, I repeated, tilting my head. That's interesting. Assets are usually protected, not discarded. Her smile faltered. She fumbled for words, then settled on, I'm sure you'll find something new. Oh, I will, I said, my voice calm but edged with steel. Something much better. She blinked, clearly unnerved, then scurried off like a mouse escaping the shadow of a hawk. Friday came quickly. I carried the box down the hallway, my heels echoing like a drumbeat. I paused at the entrance to the research lab one last time, letting my eyes sweep across the rows of monitors. The whiteboards covered in equations, the faces of my team, my second family. They stood silently watching me, their loyalty evident, even if they didn't yet know the full extent of what was about to happen. Thank you, I said, my voice catching just slightly, for your brilliance, for your trust, for believing in me. None of this would have been possible without you. Miguel's eyes glistened. Alicia looked away quickly, hiding her tears. Even Jacob, the stoic systems architect, cleared his throat and muttered, It won't be the same without you. It's going to change, I agreed softly. But sometimes change is exactly what we need. With that, I turned and walked out, the box cradled in my arms, the weight of 15 years surprisingly light. The lobby doors closed behind me with a hiss, sealing one chapter of my life. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, the soft patter of rain. Tomorrow I would finally rest. But Monday would be the reckoning. Gregory called late Saturday evening. Everything is in place. The press release is scheduled for 8 a.m. Monday. Once it goes live, the story is out of Victor's control. I closed my eyes, picturing Victor Lawson's face as he opened the morning news. The man who had stolen credit for my work, who had smiled while cutting me loose, would wake up to headlines announcing that the very technology he claimed as his own was patented in my name and licensed exclusively to his fiercest competitor. The image filled me with something I hadn't felt in years. Not just relief, not just vindication. Power. Monday morning arrived with the sharp clarity of a storm breaking. I woke before dawn, my body wired with anticipation, and made myself a strong cup of coffee. The house was quiet except for the soft tick of the clock each second pulling me closer to 8 o'clock. At 7:58, I refreshed the newsfeed on my phone. The headline appeared like a thunderclap: Tech visionary joins Precision Systems exclusive patent licensing deal signed. Beneath it, my photo taken at a tech conference years earlier now sat next to Precision's logo. My name was there, bold and undeniable: Kira Adams, Chief Innovation Officer. I leaned back in my chair and let the words wash over me. 15 years of invisibility, of watching others take credit, of enduring being called an asset instead of a person, it all evaporated in that headline. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It was public, undeniable, irreversible. By 8:05, my phone buzzed with texts and emails. Journalists wanted quotes. Former colleagues wrote congratulations, some tinged with disbelief, others with awe. And then came the message I had been waiting for: Victor Lawson is demanding an emergency meeting at HQ. I pictured him pacing that sleek conference room, his voice rising, his fists clenching. He would have seen the press release by now, would have realized that the algorithm he had dismissed as just tech stuff was patented under my name, locked away from his grasp forever. The pride that once inflated him would now feel like chains dragging him down. Meanwhile, at TechVantage, panic was erupting. My old team texted me throughout the morning. Miguel wrote, he stormed into the lab screaming, demanding to know why no one filed the patent. HR is scrambling, it's chaos. Alicia added, he said you blindsided him. Honestly? We're proud you did. I smiled at my phone, tears pricking at the edges of my eyes. Their loyalty meant more to me than the headlines, more than the money, more than the title. They knew the truth. They had always known. By noon, industry blogs were buzzing. Analysts speculated what this meant for TechVantage's future. Precision Systems stock climbed 6% by the end of the day, while TechVantage's dipped sharply. The market had spoken louder than any press release. Innovation had shifted, and with it power. Gregory called to check in, his voice steady, but carrying a note of satisfaction. The board is ecstatic. Investors are lining up. Victor's name is being dragged through the mud. I hesitated for a moment, then asked. And my old team, we'd love to bring them over, Gregory said. They're brilliant, but only if you think they're ready. I thought of their faces, the way they had looked at me on my last day, their eyes filled with both grief and loyalty. They deserved better. They deserved to thrive in a place that valued them, not discard them like worn-out parts. Let's give them time, I said. But yes, when they're ready, we'll open the door. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the city in gold, I found myself walking past TechVantage headquarters. Through the glass lobby, I could see Victor pacing, his phone pressed tightly to his ear, his gestures frantic. For a moment, I almost pitied him, the man who had once thought he controlled everything, now drowning in his own arrogance. Almost. I kept walking, my heels clicking against the pavement, my reflection in the glass standing taller than I remembered. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a shadow. I felt whole. Back home, I opened my laptop and reread the patent filing in my name, the documents that proved my ownership beyond question. My signature at the bottom glowed back at me, steady and unwavering. I whispered to myself. They thought they could erase me. Instead, I erased their control. That night I slept peacefully for the first time in months, knowing the balance of power had shifted and that this was only the beginning of my new chapter. By Tuesday morning, the industry storm had grown into a full-blown hurricane. Every news outlet carried some version of the story. TechVantage loses innovator to rival patent oversight costs millions. Victor Lawson, under fire. I watched it unfold from my new office at Precision Systems. The space felt different from TechVantage's sterile glass boxes. Here, warm wood lined the walls, natural light poured in from tall windows, and my desk was already cluttered with sketches and notes. My title plate, Chief Innovation Officer, sat gleaming at the edge of the desk. Gregory stopped by that morning, a broad smile on his face. Congratulations, Kira. You've shifted the balance of power in less than 24 hours. I didn't do it for power, I said softly. I did it to reclaim my name, my worth. He nodded. And in doing that, you've given Precision a future TechVantage can never touch. By midday, messages from recruiters and engineers filled my inbox. Some were from strangers across the industry eager to work under a woman who had defied betrayal. But others were from faces I knew all too well, my former team. Miguel wrote, "We can't stay here, everything's collapsing. HR is interrogating us, treating us like traitors. Can we talk?" Alicia added, "They're threatening to reassign us, bury us in dead-end projects. We want out. We want to work with you again." Tears welled in my eyes as I typed back, "Yes, always. I'll make space for each of you." Meanwhile, Victor's empire was crumbling. Reports surfaced that the board had convened an emergency session to discuss leadership concerns. Leaks revealed furious investors demanding answers for the lost patent and plunging stock value. His carefully constructed image of control was collapsing brick by arrogant brick. Late Wednesday afternoon, I received a call I hadn't expected. It was Barbara, a board member at Tech Vantage. Her voice was taut-tired. "Kira, I wanted to tell you personally that Victor is on the brink of being removed. The board can't protect him after this." "I can't say I'm surprised," I replied. "He thought he was untouchable." There was a pause, then she added, "You were the heart of this company. We see that now. Losing you was our mistake." Her words should have soothed me, but instead they stung. Why had it taken humiliation and chaos for them to see my value? Still, I thanked her politely before ending the call. That evening, I gathered my former team in a quiet cafe. When they walked in, their faces lit with relief. Miguel gripped my hand tightly. "We knew you had something planned. We just didn't know it was this big." Alicia leaned forward, her eyes shining. "They treated us like we were disposable. But you made us believe we mattered." I smiled, my heart full. "You've always mattered. And now I want you with me at Precision. We're going to build something better, something no one can erase." The room filled with nods, with whispered yeses, with the kind of hope I hadn't felt in years. That night, as we signed preliminary contracts, I realized the revenge was complete. Not in destroying Victor, but in reclaiming what he had tried to steal: our dignity, our brilliance, our future. The next day, a headline confirmed what Barbara had foreshadowed: Victor Lawson resigns as CEO of Tech Vantage amid scandal. His photo accompanied the story, his confident smile replaced by exhaustion, bitterness etched into his features. The man who had once strutted across stages claiming credit for my work now slunk away in disgrace. I closed the article and turned back to my whiteboard, already filled with sketches for the next evolution of my algorithm. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was fighting for recognition. I felt free to create, to lead, to innovate on my own terms. The betrayal had cut deep, leaving wounds that still ached in quiet moments. But as I stood in that new office surrounded by my team, I understood something profound. Sometimes the people who discard you are simply clearing space for the life you were always meant to build. The following weeks unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony, each note striking deeper into the downfall of Tech Vantage. The board announced Victor's resignation in a single sterile sentence, but the industry knew the truth. His arrogance had cost them everything. Investors pulled back, clients hesitated, and the company that once stood tall began to wobble under the weight of its own hubris. I received messages from old colleagues almost daily. Some apologized for not standing up for me. Others asked if there was a place for them at Precision. The irony was bitter. The same voices that had once dismissed me as just one of the researchers were now begging for inclusion in the very future they had ignored. But I wasn't vindictive. I knew the sharpness of betrayal too well. Those who came with humility and a genuine desire to contribute, I welcomed. The rest I left behind with the wreckage of Tech Vantage. My new office at Precision quickly became a place of creation and collaboration. Miguel and Alicia sat across from me most days, their laptops glowing with lines of code, their minds racing ahead to refine the algorithm even further. The air buzzed with energy, the kind that comes only when people feel valued, safe, and inspired. One evening, after a long session of brainstorming, Miguel leaned back and said, "You know, Kira, if they hadn't pushed you out, none of this would have happened. We'd still be invisible." I thought about that. He was right. The pain of betrayal had been the fire that forged this new chapter. Without it, I might still be quietly laboring under Victor's shadow, my name buried in footnotes, my worth measured only by how easily it could be erased. Yet here I was leading a team, shaping the future, owning my value. The scars of what happened at Tech Vantage would never disappear, but they no longer felt like weaknesses. They felt like proof that I had survived, adapted, and risen. Still, sometimes in the quiet hours, the hurt flickered. I remembered the cardboard box on my desk, the hollow sympathy in Marjorie's eyes, the HR jargon meant to smooth over the cruelty of being discarded. The memory stung, but it also reminded me why I would never again let someone else define my worth. Months later, at a major industry conference, I stood on stage before a packed auditorium. The lights were blinding, the cameras clicking, but I felt calm, confident. My name glowed on the screen behind me, Kira Adams, Chief Innovation Officer, Precision Systems, as I unveiled the next iteration of my algorithm. More powerful, more efficient, more revolutionary than anything Tech Vantage had ever dreamed. The audience erupted into applause. I caught sight of familiar faces in the crowd, former colleagues who had once overlooked me, now staring with something between admiration and regret. And in that moment I realized the deepest revenge wasn't Victor's downfall or Tech Vantage's decline. The truest revenge was the standing tall, recognized for what I had always been, unshakable in my truth. When the applause finally faded and I stepped off stage, a journalist rushed forward, recorder in hand. "Kira, what's the lesson you want people to take from your story?" I smiled, choosing my words carefully. "That betrayal doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do with it. Some endings are really beginnings, and sometimes the people who try to erase you are simply clearing the page for you to write your own story." That night, as I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, I opened my journal and wrote the words I wished someone had told me on that painful Friday. "You are not disposable. You are not invisible. You are your own proof of worth." If you've listened to my story this far, thank you. If it touched you, if it reminded you of your own strength, or even if it simply gave you hope, then I ask you for one thing. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories like mine. And please leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your struggles, your resilience. Together we remind the world that no one can discard us without consequence.